I would also like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, where Marrickville Metro Shopping Centre, the site study that I've created, actually sits, and where I live and work. And pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I had a lot of fun doing this. Marrickville Metro is my local shopping centre, and when I was asked by the Inner West Council, I was delighted. So what I've done is put together a site study, and it's a site study that doesn't require you to actually visit the site, and you will find it on the Inner West Council's website. The web address is down there at the bottom. And what I'd like to do today is just take you through what's on the website, and how I created it, the questions and suggestions for using it. I'm not going to tell you how to teach. You know your class and your students better than I do, but there is a lot of material in this site study. So it's something that you may want to consider, perhaps having your students working in pairs or in groups. You may want to just select parts of it to do, but it very much is aimed at the stage 4 and stage 5 and designed as one of your mandated site studies that they're required to do. Now, when you open up the History Study site page, this is what you'll see, and there are 5 buttons. The teacher's notes, the ones here that have an aerial photo of the area, the teacher's notes are where you will find, this is what you sort of need, this will be really helpful, because what I've done is given you a very condensed 1-page history of the site from pre-1788 settlement right through until the modern shopping centre that's there today. In that overview, you will find in brackets numbers. Those numbers, when I'm sort of giving you the outline, those numbers refer to the actual source number. There are 47 sources. So those numbers refer to the sources. So for instance, when what was grown there, when it was agriculture, you've got the numbers of the sources that are the references for those statements I make. You will also find in there some web links, just a short list of web links. You will find what is available in the local history section of the Marrickville Library of the Inner West Council, and you will find, so those web addresses are basically really helpful, but I've put in a few fun little things like, how to, because the sources, they're in imperial measurements and in pre-decimal currency. So I've also put in things like the calculator for working out how much something was in the past, what it's worth today, so that there are lots of little avenues that I hope will really engage your students, not only in undertaking historical inquiry and looking into and communicating that, but I'm hoping it will actually foster a little bit of interest in local community studies as well. In the teacher's notes, you will find syllabus links as well as objectives and outcomes. Now, the PowerPoint that is on the web page, I've put that together very much so that you could show it to your class as an introduction to the site. So there are a range of images and photos that are in that. And the historical sources, like I mentioned, there are 47 different historical sources, and they're done in a PDF format. And there is also questions on the evidence. So there are questions that get progressively harder, where the students are required to answer and actually give the reference, as in the source where they got that information from. Included in the questions on the evidence is a mud map or a plan of Marrickville Metro. I'm not expecting schools to be going there for a site to visit the site, but if you're in the Inner West Council area, you might want to set it for homework and that they can do over a weekend or the school holidays. If nothing else, if they do go to the Marrickville Metro, they will actually be able to find those things for themselves. So that's what you'll find. There's also an extended bibliography of library holdings, as well as a spreadsheet of the web link for where all those historical sources have come from. And that's in a separate spreadsheet that you can see down at the bottom of that page. Now, when I put this together, I was very much looking at high school history, thinking of creating a mandated site study. So it is suitable for stage 4 and stage 5, but the subject matter really lends itself to stage 5 history. And I've tried to really pick up on these historical concepts and skills that underpin the New South Wales History Syllabus. So I think probably the big ones that are used or that it focuses on in this site study are continuity and change. And what I really like about the site is that pre-1788, it was a site that was used by Aboriginal people for resources and food. And it's sort of over more than 200 years has come a full circle back to being a site that is used for resources and food today. It also is really good with looking at analysis and use of sources, as well as explanation and communication. So very much for that stage 4 and stage 5. So the objectives, they'll get a nature of understanding of the nature of history and significant changes, especially with regard to the modern world and Australia, and get an idea of the knowledge and understanding of ideas and movements and people and events. The big ones, though, I think, are probably developing skills to undertake the process of historical inquiry and those skills that they need to develop to understand history and communicate it. So a mandated site study is necessary, but the big thing is that this has been designed to be enjoyable. It's a fun exercise, and I hope that it not only creates and nurtures a lifelong interest in history, but also it makes students aware of their local community. Now, what I've got next, coming up in this presentation, is I've got a series of PowerPoint slides that give you an idea or a look at what is actually in the resources, the historical sources. And for instance, early ones, I've got Watkin Tench's map or plan of early Sydney that was done in 1793. And near Marrickville Metro Site is near the Cooks River. And in that area, we actually have it noted that it is kangaroo ground and good land on that plan. Paul Irish, in his look at Aboriginal history along the Cooks River, which is the river that is nearby, he also provides archaeological evidence of people living along the Cooks River, certainly 10,500 years ago, because of what has been excavated and found there. But we need to assume that they were there for a lot longer than that. Now, when we look at the site, so we've got that very sort of first arrival of Europeans. In 1795, there was a land grant made to James Wayne, and there is a plan. These things are all in the historical sources, and it shows his land grant here that you can see. And I found in the Sydney Gazette this wonderful advertisement he'd put in about his peaches. And it seems he was sick of people jumping over the fence and pinching them. So he's asked for people to come to the farm gate if they want his peaches. And if he finds them trespassing, he'll shoot them. Now, another source is here again from a newspaper. Wayne's land grant was sold in 1838. And I've just, for today, because you don't want to read a whole load of words on a screen, but I've basically underlined some of the things that are pertinent that I would expect the students to pick up. Because one of the questions they're asked is, what evidence for agriculture is there on the site? So I've just underlined certain things, but here we've got the soil is good for market gardens. There's cleared land, an orchard, fruit trees, slab huts, pigsties, sheds, fencing, vegetable garden. And also it notes that there is excellent soil for making bricks, and goes on to say that hundreds of bricks have been made there. Now, that land was subdivided, that land grant, 30-acre grant was subdivided and sold. And in the 1860s, Robert Cole bought a block of land and he actually built or made a tannery at the site. Marrickville Metro, the actual metro, sits right on the sort of border or edge of Gumbramora Swamp. And so there was water, water there, but he actually has a tannery, a very successful tannery there. And he is the one that actually built Mill House, which is still on the site today. It is heritage listed and is one of the oldest buildings in Marrickville, oldest houses. Now, Cole's tannery was sold at the end of the 1870s, and it was bought by Davenport and Alcock. So what they did, and you'll notice on this image here, you can just see on the right-hand side Mill House where it is today. So literally what you can see here on the screen, Marrickville Metro sits right on top of this building where Davenport and Alcock became one of the most important boot makers in New South Wales. So they turned out 174,000 plus pairs of boots in 1 year. Alcock tended to focus on the tanning side of it, so the tanning of the hides, whereas Davenport focused on the boots. And they won lots and lots of prizes and were one of the major boot suppliers in New South Wales. Now, to give you an idea of what sort of questions are there, the first two questions are actually quite tricky. These will be, your students will probably find these challenging, and it may be something you want to do as a class or a group activity. So what they're asked to do is to make a list of all 47 sources, indicate what type of source they are, and whether it is primary or secondary. So that's a matter of making a list. And with the questions on evidence, that button, when you click on that, there is actually a worksheet where you can print this off and they can use that to do this. Now, they have to work that out. But then the next question is they're asked to put these sources into chronological order from the most recent to the earliest source. Other examples are, evidence for agriculture that I just covered with James Wayne's grant. Who was Robert Cole and what did he do? And I mean, they can get away with just a question or one sentence and a phrase and the number, if they put the number there, of the evidence they've used to answer that. Now, it is built on the edge of Gumbramora Swamp, which floods, and the area still floods sometimes, even though it was drained and stormwater canals put in the 1890s. But I've got here a picture that is from the Powerhouse Museum collection that is in the early part of the 20th century of Vickers Mills when it flooded. Now, Vickers, they established their mill there in 1893. Vickers, they were in the city previously, but they made woolen fabrics, and that they were one of the largest suppliers. They, and this is where it nicely fits in, I think, with the Stage 5 syllabus, is that they made most of the uniform material for the armed forces as well as for government workers. Uniforms, they made blankets. And the reason I put it in that little calculator is I actually worked out that that figure there of what a contract was in 1940 to supply the army, actually it's $1 billion. When you calculate it into today's terms, it was a really important industry, very much one of the most important industries in Marrickville. So not only did they supply fabric for the armed forces, but they provided fabrics for fashion. This gives you an idea of what the mill looked like. So that's when it was operating. This is the site of where Marrickville Metro is today. And also in the resources, I've put in 2 aerial photographs. This one, and with the arrow pointing to Marrickville Metro, this one is from 1943. And this one is from 2006. And that's something useful. You can see the metros there. But, you know, asking students, what's the difference between what's changed in the area over time? For instance, just below where the shopping centre is in 2006, you can see lots of industrial buildings. Back in 1943, there were houses there. So just little things like that. Questions, again, just examples. What did Vickers Woolen Mill supply the government with? Now, the one about the sources 46 and 47, that's the mural that was on the title slide. Another question asked them to design a mural that depicts aspects of the site's history. What do the sources reveal about continuity and change? And then they're asked to imagine the site in 30 years' time and to draw or design what they think it will be like. These images are in the PowerPoint, and these are ones that I took of what survives of Vickers Woolen Mills. So this is on the corner of Victoria Road and Murray Street. You can see here the facade of Vickers. What I really like, one of the sources mentions there was brick paving laid in the footpaths laid in the 1920s. And here in Victoria Road, you can see those remnants of the brick footpath. Up on the car park, so above the first stage of the shopping centre, you can see the old walls of Vickers. So you can see them surrounding. This is again Victoria Road, looking at the facade of Vickers. And from the car park, that's what it looks like on the other side. An entranceway here. And this lovely photo by Lynn Collingwood shows what the site looked, the other side of that facade in 1984 when it was demolished. The new extension of Marrickville Metro that extends from Sydmore Street to Edinburgh Road is on the site of the old Shelley's cordial factory. One of the links that's in the teacher's notes, there's the oral history podcast giving the history of Shelley's cordial factory by Arthur Shelley. If you're interested in you know, you can do a bit of oral history with the students. I've also, these images are all in your sources and and in the PowerPoint. So Marrickville Metro opened in 1987. This picture here taken in 2013. This is very much in the style of the 80s, but with the revamp in 2021, this is what that same facade looks like now. Also painted on the Victoria roadside is this wonderful mural by Alex Lahores, which takes in aspects of the site's history and Marrickville history, which I really think is just a fantastic thing. And that's why I've included in the questions that they design or draw a mural that represents an aspect of the site. So the idea was to, and this is from Alex's artist statement, and I think this is quite fitting really for something for schools. The idea was to create a contemporary piece using a combination of imagery and topography that reflects the vast history of the site, but also looks to the future and hopefully provides inspiration for a younger generation. So I'm hoping that this site study provides inspiration for your students and engages them in their local community. So thank you.